What to do when you have just 1 week in Spain to study flamenco? Should you study it in one city or two cities? If that's something that you've been pondering about, then let me go through some pros and cons. Firstly, I think it depends on your objective, whether you want to go deep or whether you want to go and have an impression of the flamenco teaching in two different cities like Madrid and Sevilla, or Madrid or Granada, or Sevilla and Jerez or Cadiz. I personally feel that when we get to Spain, we need a bit of time to settle down and orientate ourselves. I need that 1 week to chug up my learning, especially when we come from overseas and we're not used to that intensity of learning yet. So it takes quite a while to chug up. And then sometimes it feels like just after 1 week, you're really at your optimal absorbing of the learning. Oh, it's time to go. So that can feel, it feels like a pity because you're at your optimum. Even going to Spain, how much time you should spend, right? I think minimum 1 week would be really good. Firstly, because you do need time to settle down and get used to things like even getting used to the teaching, to the language, to moving around as well. And the other reason also being that within that 1 week, you can then focus on a daily basis. Consistency of learning then intensifies and consolidates your learning. So day one is what you're learning, and then day two you consolidating day one's work, and day three you consolidate more. And that consistency is what helps us to absorb more, but more importantly it also helps us to internalize and be grounded in our learning, as opposed to if you were, let's say, 3 days in Madrid and you've just gotten those 3 days of learning, you've just maybe actually just picked the surface of the learning, and then it's time to go perhaps to your second city that you've chosen, like whether it's Sevilla, Granada, Jerez, Cadiz, for example, and then you have to start again, you have to chug up again. And that then doesn't allow you to consolidate the learning you had in say, Madrid, before moving on to a next set of learning in your second city, and from different teachers too. So that's one consideration you might want to have. Focus on what your objectives are, whether it's to learn a choreography or whether it's really to refine your technique and work on dancer quality. As an example, in the Festival de Jerez that takes place every year in February, the length of time of a workshop is about 7 days, and it's intensive. They do it for about 2 hours, 20 minutes every day. And I personally find that really, really helpful, that intensity of time. When I organized the flamenco culture trips to Sevilla in Manuel Betanzos Academy, it is also organized for 1 week for the same reason that consistency and intensity enables us to internalize the learning more. It's something that Manuel had talked about too, because when I organized workshops for him in Singapore, I used to spread it out over, let's say, level, basic level, beginner's level. I would have spread it over Monday, Wednesday and Friday, for example, and in between I would have slotted in, let's say, the intermediate. But we found that students actually didn't have the focus of mind. They would come for Monday, they learn it, and then there would be a break on Tuesday, and Wednesday they haven't to even try to remember what they did on Monday. And so that's when we said, okay, no, I think the best mode of learning is that focus. How do we focus the students? How do we focus ourselves in our learning? And that's why I feel it's very beneficial if you have limited time to then focus if your objective is to go deep and be able to revise and internalize. Having said that, if you're there and your objective is, okay, I have a short amount of time, I just want to be able to, get a sense of things perhaps for my next trip, where then I can decide to settle down for a longer period of time than just 1 week. Then, okay, having the impression, maybe your priority, that's fine if you then shift between cities, because the priority is an impression as opposed to really learning and going deeper, or perhaps accomplishing a short choreography, or perhaps really working at your technique and dancer quality. So that's a different objective. And then the other reason I say, okay, maybe stay settled in one place, is because you do want to have time to get to know the city. Apart from your flamenco or classical Spanish studies, you want to go out of the studio to absorb the culture and the life. So, the best way of doing so is just going with the rhythm of the city and of the people without moving from one city to another. So I hope this has been useful sharing with you if you were wondering whether within that limited time you have to spread yourself across different cities to study your dance.